Hello everybody, it's hobbitsizz, and welcome to another Legends of Runeterra video. In today's video, we are talking about Shurima-ish. We are talking about what you're gonna do with all the Shurima shit, right? We're getting Shurima, we're getting cards, we're getting regions, we're getting champions, we're getting synergies. Oh god, it's so overwhelming, what do we do? Well, calm down, first of all. Calm down. Because I'm gonna help you. So, a lot of people want to be able to make decks with all these new cards. Like, I personally love Lysandra. Really want to make Lysandra deck. The Watcher sounds cool. Comment what deck you want to make. What cards you want to use. But, a lot of people don't really know, like, how to go about this, right? Like, what makes a deck? Like, how do you deck, right? So, I will be doing a short video giving a brief rundown in what I like to call Deck Building 101, a Hobbitsizz Guide. So there's a couple things in mind when you're deck building, right? You want to look at what cards you want and how those cards are used in a deck, what kind of deck it will be, and then how you win. Because that's it. Like, the most important thing in card games, right, is winning. It is. That's the whole point of it, is to play and win. So, yeah, it's to have fun, play a deck that you have fun with. But, you're playing a deck that you are playing in order to win. You're not playing a deck to lose. So, we're going to use pre-existing things, not the Shurima cards, but this is general terms. So with any champion you want, right? Pick a champion. I can't do cards. Pick a champion. Any champion. And you can look at that champion and go what deck it fits into, based on like its stat line, based on its effect. And then you're going to see whether that card is a win condition in itself, because all looking at win cons. I'm going to use win con for the term instead of win condition, because condition is too many syllables and I'm lazy. So we're looking at win con. So we see, does the champion itself a win con? If yes, awesome. We can build a lot of supporting cards to get that win con out. If the champion's not a win con, well then it's supporting whatever win con the deck has. And so we'll pick a random champion to go through a couple examples. I'm not going to fully build out some decks. That would take a lot of time. Normally when I build decks, it takes me a couple of hours. So I'm not doing a couple hour video. It's going to be a shorter video. So keep that in mind. All right, so let's pick a champion. My eyes are closed. Champion, 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 champion. I'll scroll to the top, scroll to the bottom, scroll to the top, scroll to the bottom, this one. All right, so on my screen right now, I have middle panel, Thresh, Trundle, Vi, Vladimir. So let's go with I don't know where my mouse went. Vlad. It was far to the right. Vlad. All right. Very scientific method of choosing things. I know. Incredible. All right. So let's look at Vladimir. So for each attacking ally on my right, deal 1 to it and 1 to any nexus is his effect. Level up, you've had 5+ allies survive damage, and he's a 5 mana 5/5 with no keywords. When he's leveled up, he has regeneration. So, okay, right away, we see he's not a win con, right? He's a 5 mana 5/5, so his stats aren't anything super impressive. He's basically baseline for what 5/5 should be. His ability has a potential to do 5 damage, but it doesn't, like... Vlad doesn't win on his own, right? He needs then a board to do that 5 damage. So he's not a win condition. All right, well, that's fine. What about when he levels up, though? Is he a win condition when he levels up? Well, he's a 5 mana 6/6 regeneration. No. He would need, like, Overwhelm or Fearsome, something like that. Something like a big keyword, right? And he doesn't. So he's just, he's a big body that can instead drain. So he heals you, but he's still not a win con. And you go, okay, what deck does Vladimir's an easy one, right? Because there's like an archetype built around it. But so what deck does Vladimir work with? And we all kind of know the answer off the top of our heads. Vladimir deals 1 damage to things and deals 1 damage to a nexus. So he works with a deck that really likes to get damage, which just so happens to also be Braum, because he likes surviving damage. So, we can go Vladimir and Braum together. And that's cool. But then what's the win condition for this deck, right? You can have Vladimir, you can have Braum, maybe have more cards like Omen Hawk, maybe put in some Unscarred Reavers to get big buff units. But Unscarred Reaver doesn't have Overwhelm, it's just a big beat stick. So for those of you who are wondering why I'm saying that, like, why people are like, oh, but Unscarred Reaver could be a win condition, right? Because it gets +3 attack. So if you keep buffing its health and buffing it up, it could get like 20 attack. Yeah, but it doesn't have Overwhelm. 20 attack doesn't matter when my opponent can block it with a 1/1 spider. You know, stats only matter so much from Runeterra. They matter to, like, establish your game plan for, like, the first few turns. And when you get to the late game, unless stats have a keyword or something associated with them, they don't matter. So, decent early game, but not a win condition, because stats start to fall off hard. And same like Crimson Disciple, okay, we can get some damage, but, you know, it's okay. Imperial Demolitionist does damage too. So we got some cool effects here, but we're looking at, like, this is a mid-rangey deck. Maybe we can look, maybe the win condition is like burning down our opponent. We got Crimson Disciple, you know, Vladimir does damage. Okay. Imperial, this does damage. Maybe put some Legion Grenadiers and do damage. So now we're kind of thinking lines of, okay, well, if we do like a burn deck, right? Maybe that's our win condition. And we keep looking through cards, and like maybe Ember Maidens for burn. Maybe we go a little bit harder on the aggro and go like Iron Ballista. But kind of, then you have to think for a second. You're like, wait, if I'm playing all these cards, which are very early game and very burn heavy and very, like, aggressive, do I really even want Vladimir? Is this a card that will really help? I mean, a lot of my units are probably low on HP already because I'm hitting them for damage with, like, Imperial Demolitionist and things like that. You're like, maybe that won't work. So you keep looking down the list. All right, you find some things you like, you find some you don't. And, all right, we got another card that self-damages, and this is a little more of a mid-range card, because Vlad is like a mid-range type of card, right? If an aggro deck, Vlad will be like your finisher, but we're determined Vlad isn't a very good finisher. With no keywords that really help, he can do like a max of 5 damage, and that's if your board's full, so he's not a finisher. So we're playing more of a mid-range deck. We have Scar Grounds, which is really good with Vladimir, and this is definitely not an aggro card either. So if we want to play this, we're not playing aggro. But we need something, right? We need something to win the game. What will win us the game? Keep going down, maybe Kato. And this is where, like, the first thing of, we might have win condition, because he grants Overwhelm. Or not grant, sorry, gives Overwhelm. So we can turn our 6 attack Vladimir, he's upgraded, into a 9 attack unit with Overwhelm, which is a thing that can win us the game, because that's a lot of attack with Overwhelm. That's good. All right, so Kato, definite possibility. Looking down, Karkaz is cool, but again, he doesn't win us the game. You keep looking down, and I think you all know where we're going with this. Eventually, you get to Scar Mother Verena. When I survive damage, get me +3 attack. Fantastic card for this. If you play Vlad and then play Scar Mother and you get an attack off, she basically just turns into a 6/8 with Overwhelm, or sorry, a 6/7 because Vlad did 1 damage to her. The opponent most likely can't kill her. You should have some buffs available anyway. And if she sticks around for like another turn, you can probably get her to like 9, 12 attack. And then she just goes off, right? She's your win condition. All right, cool. So we figured out that this deck, from our small look at things, we figured out this deck is a mid-range deck. We need Overwhelm in terms of either, I can't find her now, Scar Mother Verena, or like Kato the Arm giving people Overwhelm. Cool. So we got a mid-range thing that damages itself and do that. And there you go. And now you got the basics of a deck, right? You have the idea, and now you just find cards to support it. And again, I'm not going through making a deck, so that was an example. So let's go back to cards. Get out of here. All regions. All right, let's say look at like randomly. That was too much random. That was not random. All right, we'll look at like 6 drop cards. I don't know. All right, let's say look at something. We'll look at not Naxos or Freljord. Let's look at Hecarim, right? If we want to make a Hecarim deck, where does Hecarim fit? Well, Hecarim is a 6 mana 5/5. You know, so stat-wise, that's understated, right? We saw Vlad was a 5 mana 5/5, and I said that was like vanilla stat line for a 5 mana, which it is. So Hecarim seems pretty bad for 6 mana, but he has Overwhelm. Okay, a step in the right direction for a 6 mana card. And summon 2 attacking Spectral Riders. My level up is you attack with 7+ Ephemeral Allies. And his leveled form is a 6 mana 6/6. And it says Ephemeral Allies have +3 attack this round. So when he's leveled up, he summons 2 5/2s. Well, that's pretty good. Can this be used as a finisher? Yeah. He has Overwhelm, so weaker board states can't just chump block him. He summons 2 additional units, so he goes wider. If you have 1 big unit, then he goes too wide for them. And generally, your win condition card will be played like on turn 6 and up, right? 6 mana and up usually. That's generally at the point where cards you want to be playing have a really big impact. And the cool thing about Hecarim, so he has Ephemeral. We already know that, okay, he has Ephemeral synergy, so we have to play some cards with him. Maybe we play some with Hecarim. Maybe we play like Shark Chariots. I can't find Shark Chariots, but maybe play like a couple Evershade Stalkers. Play some Haunted Relics. Definitely Shark Chariots. Try to kind of get that Ephemeral. And if you're looking at ephemeral units like Shark Chariot and things like that are really good when they're attacking, really bad when they're defending. So, okay, we already, like, out of the gate, right? Out of the gate, we already got that. Okay, this pony wants an aggressive, attack-oriented deck that it aims to win by about the time Hecarim comes out, which is like around turn 6 or 7. You're going to play Hecarim. Sweet. So we're filling the board with the ephemerals, and we can win with Hecarim, because Hecarim can, when he's leveled up, he's a 6 mana, 6/6 Overwhelm. That summons 2 5/2s effectively. And if we have other things attacking with it, we can get a full board. Okay, and I know what you're thinking, right? Like, 6 mana, 6/6 isn't super great. 2 5/2s, yeah, it's alright, but like the opponent can definitely survive through that. Okay, well then we need a second win condition that builds off the first one. So how about we use like Harrowing, which can revive our Hecarim and get him to attack again. You might be able to survive 1 Hecarim attack. Can you survive multiple? What if we have 2 Hecarims? And we summon 2 Hecarims? Well, that'd be crazy. And so then Harrowing is acts like our secondary win condition. Because this deck probably won't be able to win with just ephemerals. We won't be able to get enough pressure off of it, right? Ephemerals are most of the time weakly statted units. Got a 1/1. These are some 2/2s. Even the Shark Chariot's like a 3/1. We can get some ephemerals here, that 2/1s. But most of the ephemerals you summon will be weak. So being able to kill an opponent with a bunch of weak units, that a lot of them are like slow speed spells and things that give the opponent a lot of time to react, probably not going to happen. So that's why we need our win conditions in terms of like Hecarim and then Harrowing. And obviously, if you've played the meta before Felios, you know that spooky Hecarim was a thing. We're doing Hecarim, Lucian, and it was kind of like an OTK ephemeral deck, like using Hecarim and Harrowing and Lucian as kind of like your win conditions. It's alright, cool. Like, we got a basis of a deck with Hecarim, right? Again, this is like very basic stuff. It's you find a champion, or a card. It can be a card too, but for the most part, you're probably looking at champions. So you find a champion, you find what his stats are, what his mana cost is, what his general ability is, and then based on the stats of your champion and what their ability is, you can find a deck that probably fits well with them. We can even look more into Shadow Isles. Like, let's look at Nocturne. He's a 4 mana, 5/3 Fearsome that really wants Nightfall synergy. Nightfall vulnerable this round, you attack with 5+ Nightfall allies. So to level up Nocturne, we want Nightfalls. And that's easy enough, right? So we know we want a mid-range deck, so we're not going to fill it with cards like Ruination. Might put a Harrowing, because it can also be used as a win condition on like turn 6, but we're not going to put Ruination. We're not going to put like Ledros, Terror of the Tide, Spectral Matron, Rasa. Probably not even Rekindler. These are all very late game things. We want more of like a very early game. Nocturne with his 4 mana 5/3 can be used in like a more aggressive deck, and maybe he's the finisher. Or maybe he can be used in like a mid-range kind of combo deck by giving everything Fearsome. So maybe with Nocturne, you play a bunch of Nightfall units, and then you play Nocturne, everything gets Fearsome, and you go for a big wide attack, which is a very valid strategy with him. So we can see that he'll be playing with Nightfall units. And then we can go, all right, well, Nightfall. Let's look at this. Okay, cool. So now we have Nightfall units. So now we know that these units will pair with Nocturne, and we'll probably end up putting a few of these. We'll put with 3 of each of these, 3 of each of these, and maybe 1 or 2 of these. And there we go. Now we got some Nightfall stuff. And if you want to expand that even further, Nightfall's also in Targon. And then we can throw like Diana with him, right? And we just keep building on this like Nightfall synergy package. For Nocturne, it's really easy because he's a Nightfall. Like with Hecarim, it's really easy because he's ephemeral, right? So we build like ephemeral synergy packages and Nightfall synergy packages. And okay, so that's kind of like the basis of it, right? I give examples, a couple examples. I'll give like one more. Let's go with everyone's favorite fucked up rodent, Teemo. Teemo just puts a bunch of mushrooms in the deck when he hits the deck, and then your opponent draws the mushrooms. So ideally with Teemo, is he your win condition? Well, not really. He's a 1-mana 1/1, so he's not getting win condition from damage. He's putting mushrooms in the deck. But really, he's kind of like the means to an end, right? He gets the game started in your favor. Your win condition is your opponent drawing a bunch of mushrooms. Teemo puts them there, but he doesn't necessarily kill them with it, right? If they don't have, and it's kind of like Teemo deck is a little more interesting because it's not like you play one card, like you play Scar Mother, and that's your win condition. You just need to buff her and you win. You play Hecarim and you attack, and maybe you Harrowing afterwards and you win. Teemo is a slow build up to an eventual payoff. So with Teemo decks, you really want to, if we go like with Teemo, right? If we want him, we're really going to want a card that makes our opponents draw. And luckily with the new expansion when Victor came out, we got just that Hexcore Foundry. So we got Hexcore Foundry and Teemo. Those two together work for our win condition. And now we're looking at a mushroom package. Poison Puffcat package. And then we just go Puffcat. Not Puffap. Or Puffap? We'll just go Puffcat. Now we go Puffcat. Now we see that Puffcat package. And we can put these things in, and then we can kind of figure stuff out from there, right? Like, we have the general basis for this. And we know the entire goal is to put mushrooms in the opponent's deck. We can say, okay, maybe we want to discard this with a lot of spells. Well, let's play a lot of spells then. And let's try to keep this thing alive. And so it can keep putting more and more mushrooms, and we can make the opponent draw mushrooms, and we can win. So we know from like Teemo's stat line, if we want to play for Teemo's win condition, we don't care about trying to buff this guy to get maybe a big elusive attack and win the game. No. He's going to hit a couple times, he's going to put some mushrooms in, and we're just going to slowly draw our opponent down. So what a Teemo deck really wants is to have a nice, slow game. So you're going to want a lot of things that stop your opponent from doing whatever they're doing and just keeps them drawing. In other words, you want a nice control deck. And just so happens, Teemo Frostbite is the control deck that a lot of people are using. For that very reason, it just slows the game down so Teemo can get a couple of hits in, and over time your opponent will just keep drawing mushrooms and die. And so that's like the example Teemo deck. Now, so that's when you're looking at champions, right? So we got the champion. So let's say we got like, so I'll go to like one of my decks, right? So if we got, say, Fiora Shen. All right, we got Fiora Shen. Cool, we got Fiora, we got Shen. How do we put in the rest of the cards? We got barriers, right? We'll throw in a couple barrier cards because they're Shen cards. Sweet. We got some barriers. Easy. Those are easy packages because they relate to what Shen wants with barriers. A couple barriers, nice. We got barrier packages. Barrier. Easy cards. How the hell do you figure out what the rest of the cards are? Well, first step is to go through what the OP cards of the region is. Every region has them. Cards that are just great, that make that region super unique and super powerful, and that you really, really want there. For Demacia, it is single combat, sharp sight, and I would argue Concerted Strike. Concerted Strike isn't applicable in every Demacia deck, but for the most part, Concerted Strike is going to be very powerful. So we got Concerted Strike, single combat, and sharp sight. So we know in some form or another, whether 3 copies, 2 copies, maybe even 1 copy of some things, we will want all 3 of these cards in our deck. And you can do the same thing for Ionia. What cards are really good in Ionia? Well, Deny and Opify. Like, those are the 2 best cards in Ionia. All right, so we're going to want Denies and Opifies. We don't know the exact amount, but we know we want these 2 cards. And, some other things like River Shaper is a little less intuitive when, making a deck, but it's because you want card draw. And then you kind of try to find the overall theme of the deck. with what you want to do. This deck obviously is very predicated on keeping Fiora alive. So then all these spells, work well with that front. But as you can see, like, we just picked a couple champions. Shen works well with Fiora. They both work well with barriers, so we got barrier support. We got some, like, OP cards of the regions. Cool. And then we have a couple other things, like Screeching Dragon works really well with barrier as well, because there's Challenger. And then Cythria is a good endgame card. She is also a finisher, because Shen and Fiora aren't... Fiora is a win condition. Kill 4 enemies, survive, win the game. But she's a win condition that's, can be stopped. And we want to have multiple ways of winning the game. Or, like, a really strong one way of winning the game. And this deck is nice because it has multiple different ways. You can go for trying to keep Fiora alive. You can go for a big attack with Cythria because it gives everything fearsome. You can go big attack with Brightsteel Formation, right? We have a couple ways of winning the game with this deck. So you don't have to hold and just say, only one card is my win condition, right? I can only use this one card to win the game. No, that's not true. You can have multiple cards that do that. You just have to be careful with the balancing. So Fiora is a 3-mana card, so that's fine. She can be our win condition as a 3-mana card because she literally is that. Like, she is one. Normally 3-mana cards aren't. But because she's a 3-mana card and overall just a solid card, besides her actual win condition, it's fine to have her in there. And then we see for, like, our 6th... We only have 2 Cythrias, so we're not going to 3 Cythrias and 3 Brightsteel Formations, because that would overload our deck with too many win conditions and not enough cards to support that win condition. And this is like the general balancing act of decks, right? This makes the part difficult. So we got what champions we want to use. We got what our win conditions are, whether the champion itself is a win condition or whether it's a supporting win condition. Like Shen, he's not a win condition. He just gives shit barrier. Yeah, he can give the bonus attack, but he's not winning anything, right? All he does is give stuff barrier and bonus attack. So obviously we need other cards to win, where it comes in like Cythria, Screeching Dragon, Fiora, all the things that can help with him. So, with that in mind, all of that said and done, where do we go, right? So we have the cards, we got the win conditions, we got the packages, we got, champions. How do we know how many of each card to put in? Well, unfortunately, that's not something I can really tell you. In any deck, champions, generally, I can tell you, champions you want a 3 of. In most decks, you will want a 3 of all your champions. Most decks. Not all, but that's a good baseline to go off of. All the other cards, though, unfortunately, you kind of just have to play and figure it out. It's... Finding out how many copies of cards to put in a deck is very meta-dependent. And unfortunately, it's not really something I can teach. It's kind of something you have to observe and kind of figure out for yourself. Like, if you're finding out that Deny is starting to be less useful, maybe you have like 2 Denies in your hand, but barely any targets to play Deny on. Maybe instead of playing 3 Denies in your deck, you play 2, right? So you don't get bricked as often with Denies. Or say, like, you're running, only like one, say you're running 1 copy of Concerted Strike, right? And you're finding that, if I only, like, there's a lot of cards I need to remove, but I don't have any big removal cards. And I'm fighting a lot of things which I need big removal cards for. Well, then you can slot in a couple more Concerted Strikes, right? It's very dependent on what you're facing. So you kind of have to play a few games in the deck to kind of figure out what the general vibe of it is and what the general vibe of what you're facing is and how those two fit together. So it is trial and error. Once you got the deck, it's trial and error then to figure out, what you need from there. But anyway, that can be done with all the Shurima cards. Whether you're playing Renekton, right? Renekton is an overwhelmed, big-ass body. So either you can build a deck around just getting Renekton huge and giant and eating everything. Or you can just make maybe like an overwhelmed deck that's like very aggro-oriented and just use Renekton as an aggro piece and have a different card that acts as like a win condition. Maybe you have like Battle Fury as your win condition, right? So kind of stuff like that to think about. I know this is kind of very general, but there's not really a way. There's so many different cards in this game, right? And so many different combos that it would take me forever to go through and be like, this card combos with this card, combos with this card, combos with this card. But you can kind of look through. A lot of champions make it relatively easy to see what cards combo with them. For instance, Ezreal combos with spells, Aphelios combos with Temple, TF combos with Draw, Tryndamere combos with being a thick-ass boy, Elise combos with spiders. Like, you know, it's general stuff like that. So I would say that when you're looking at Shurima and all the new cards, you find out, you know, the champion that you like, and for the most part, like, Lysandra will have synergy with 8 mana plus cards. So you're probably running in her in a deck which uses 8 mana plus cards, so you can get her effect off. And then from there, it's, okay, well, I'll slot in a couple Avalanches, because Avalanche is really good, and I know 8 mana plus cards will take a long time to get to, so I'll throw in Avalanches to stall the game. Cool. Well, then I need ramp cards, because I need to be able to play those 8 mana plus cards. Alright, need ramp cards. Well, I want to keep Lysandra alive, so I'll put in some cards to keep her alive. You know, you kind of go through the general vibe of the deck like that, and you find out what works, what doesn't, and then you change things up. So, I apologize a little bit for the rant, but I hope you guys this got you thinking a little bit more about how to construct your own decks, and that it's not that scary of a process. It's really not super daunting, right? You don't have to make a tier 1 deck. That's not really the goal. You need to make a deck that is good enough and that is fun to play. And that's pretty much all you're looking for. And it's, you know, just once you calm down a little bit and stop getting a little so overwhelmed with everything, you find out a lot of the decks, they have kind of intrinsic ways that you can play them. And yeah, it might not be like the most unique, crazy combos, but, you know, again, when you're looking at the base form of decks, you don't need to have crazy combos off the top of your head. You just need to have, like, these things work together, and that'll be good enough. If you guys want to see more kind of like talks about general themes of the game, if you guys want to see more specifically how to make like one certain deck, I can do that as well. But please let me know. The comments are a great spot. I do try to respond to as many of you as I can, so keep that a-coming. And please like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube sign-off. Thanks everyone so much for watching. Bye!